guys, what are we looking at? We are looking at the Sitivien knives ST103, and there's definitely going to be an affiliate link to this knife down below because you're going to be shocked when you find out how much it costs. This thing is an amazing little EDC, and it didn't take me very long to get around to doing a full review of it because it was just so easy to find the points of it that I really liked. So without any further ado, you guys turn down the volume because we're going to turn this around and take a look at it from above. But first, here comes a little bit of music. This is that Sitivien Knives ST103 Wharncliffe. Now, I got this in from Jared. I had no idea what the price point was on it. I just looked up all the specs and everything. I am amazed at what you're getting for that cost. So this is right up there with that QSP Penguin. Same style blade shape, same everything. This thing's amazing. So we're gonna go ahead and we're going to put a spec sheet. You're going to have to pause it and read it. I'm going to put the spec sheet over here so that you can look at it. There's a lot to read. I could not find like a linear spec sheet like I usually like. So this is a nice little flipper in D2 that has a lot going for it, especially at the price point. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. We'll get some weight and we'll get some behind the edge thickness, blade stock thickness and stuff like that. But Jared sent me this and he told me I was going to be surprised when I look at the price point. So I'm definitely putting an affiliate link. The only place I found it for sale really was on Amazon, but I'm going to put a link down below and we're going to talk about how I use this knife and everything. So yeah, it didn't take me very long to get through this knife and have it ready for a review because it just really is pretty amazing and it's kind of unique. So let's go ahead and first things first, let's go grab the scale so we can get some weight and we'll get the behind the edge thickness and blade stock thickness. Let's go ahead and get the weight on my certified gem here. So let's see what I finished with last time. Let's do ounces first. So this is not a real heavy knife. 4 1/4 or 4 1/8 ounces. In grams, you're looking at what? 116 grams. Not super heavy, not real light, but it is a substantially large knife when you compare it to some other knives at that weight and things like that. So let's go ahead and we'll get the scale out of the way and we're going to take a look at the behind the edge thickness and the blade stock thickness. Let's take a look at the behind the edge thickness and blade stock. Let's look at blade stock first. I imagine this is going to come in at like 0.15-ish, 0.14-ish, about 0.14. So not super thick blade stock, but the behind the edge on this I'm curious about because this thing cut so well. 0.0195 on the behind the edge thickness on my caliper. So, there's a little variance with that, especially like, how far behind the edge. It's really hard to get a real accurate behind the edge thickness, but I will say super thin behind the edge, slicey for the blade stock thickness. So let's go ahead and get these calipers out of the way. I had to take my wife mandated 2-hour lunch break. She's really, because I was in the hospital, she's kind of concerned and she's making sure that I get enough rest and I'm not working the 16 hours a day that I was trying to get all this stuff out for you guys. So yeah, I carried this for about a week or so between the first impressions. Like you guys saw the first impressions, but that wasn't necessarily when it was actually done. Sometimes things get filmed in advance. So I carried this and I'll tell you what it reminded me of. It reminded me of the big brother of a knife I really love, the QSP Penguin. When I first got it, I was kind of worried about how this would feel in hand and everything. So let's look at the good points of this knife. So the good points is that, and we'll talk about price point last because holy crap, guys. Good points of this knife. It is a very, very comfortable carry. Even though it does have a deep parry pocket clip that I'm usually not a fan of, they did a really good job of having it in a position where it's, even though my hand's a little red there, it's not uncomfortable. So even if you're bearing down and doing some heavy cutting, not bad at all. They did some cool aesthetic pieces to this. Like this is almost like a reverse, this is reverse to what I typically would see, I should say. Typically this is this is higher. There's a ridge here and people use that to reverse flick, but it gives a unique look. So they did a really good job with the aesthetics. And then this is one of the few folding knives that I've had in a long time that carry along these little finger cutouts and things like that just kind of fall in naturally. And I do know that some people aren't a fan of those, but this is something you typically see on fixed blade knives. Now, I'm not saying that it's not a good thing on a folding knife. It really, really is. But the fact is, I wasn't expecting it. And when I first saw it, I was like, I bet that's going to be uncomfortable. And then you had this big ridge. I did the first impressions when we did the unboxing. I got to say, this really, really grew on me. It's an awesome little knife as far as comfort-wise. The action on this thing is really smooth. It's not quite drop shut, just shy. I mean, it is literally just shy of drop shut, just a tiny, tiny little jiggle. Let's see, will it drop shut? Almost, just a tiny jiggle, and it goes home. The lines on it, this gives you a very unique look on these lines. Now, the fact is, outside of aesthetics, it's super functional. You saw the behind the edge thickness. This thing cuts like no one's business. I cut down a good bit of cardboard with this, and I honestly did not have to resharpen it. The only thing I did was I put it on a ceramic rod once after doing some heavy cutting. I cut up a lot of cardboard with it one day, and all I had to do was touch it up on a ceramic rod, and it went right back to, like, this is not, well, let's see. It's pretty much right back to hair pot. I put it on a ceramic rod, but I did not strop it. So that's what you're looking at. Like that came right back up to pretty sharp. So is it perfect? No, but I did a lot of cutting with it and it's still aggressively sharp. You've got a really nice Wharncliffe blade that's fairly long. Let's go get the QSP Penguin and compare it real quick. Guys, I grabbed a couple knives to do some comparison. Like I said, I hit this on that ceramic, so it's not perfectly sharp. Like I said, I'd give it a kiss on a strop just to kind of, you can see it's cutting a little bit more smoothly. Now, ceramic rods have a tendency to leave you a little burr. They are a maintenance tool. They come in handy. But I did grab a couple other knives, and I have to apologize if you guys are hearing a little background noise. My wife and daughter are getting ready to go to my daughter's skating recital. So size comparison, obvious comparison would be the knife that it most resembles in my collection is the QSP Penguin. Another great folding knife in a Wharncliffe or sheep's foot style like this. Some other comparisons we can make. There's your QSP Penguin. So there is your Benchmade 940, really similar in size, actually almost 1-for-1. If you put your finger up against it, you can see it's almost 1-for-1 with the Benchmade 940. So it's not a small knife. And then, you know, I'm gonna use the Sebenza pretty often because most people are gonna know the size of a Sebenza. Just shy of being the same size, just a little bit off from being the same size as Sebenza. So let's go ahead and get these. I carried this knife for about a week and I did a lot of cutting with it. It cut incredibly well. Now, I will say there are some bad things about this knife, not much, but I'll get to them at the end. So this thing cuts really well, super comfortable in hand, like I said before. Jimping on it is just about perfect. Now that we got specs and everything out of the way, the jimping on it's just about perfect. There's not too much of it. It's in a position that makes sense. And it's not too aggressive, but it's also not too soft. It's just in that Goldilocks zone. There is a little bit of jimping on the flipper. And the flipper does kind of sit there where you're going to get your finger into that jimping, but it's not aggressive because you pretty much are touching here. You don't get too far up on that because they've got this little finger choil area here and this unique looking handle that makes it super comfortable, just buttery in hand. They did give you ample access to the liners, and the liners, guys, if you're going to show your liners, I've said this before, I like hidden liners and I like the redacted scales where you can see the liner all the way around. But if you're going to do it this way, man, polish them. It makes them pop. They really look good. Everything on those liners are polished. There is some weight reduction, and for a budget knife, I will have to say a lot of budget knives, the inside of the liners are not finished very well. Even on some of the nicer budget knives that I do like, some of the artisan cutlery and the CJRBs, They honestly don't do a lot of inside finish work. The finish work that was done on these liners, it's almost as clean inside, if not as clean, as it is on the outside. So they put a lot of work into that, and there's a lot to be said for that. That's some attention to detail. There are no raised areas where you can feel the liner over the scales. They are just about perfect. You have a nice backspacer that they just kind of roll right into. It's obvious that these scales and everything were finished together with the liners. The backspacer, it does have a lanyard hole, but the backspacer encompasses that lanyard hole completely. So if you're a lanyard hole guy, you don't have to worry about, are you going to clip your lanyard and cut it? I cut a ton of cardboard down with this, and the D2 held its edge pretty well. I was kind of worried. I had heard people say that all these are crap knives, these are kind of garbage. I'm not seeing it. This is a fairly quality knife at the price point. When I tell you the price, I hope you're surprised. I hope you haven't already been looking stuff up. This thing does run on bearings, steel liners, G10 scales, and then it has this ridge, and I was kind of concerned about that ridge, but it gives you a bit of a, I don't know what you would call it, like a little bit of tactile feel to it, where you have this little ridged area where your fingers kind of line up against it, and they really do. When you're holding it, your fingers kind of line with that, and you can feel that. It gives you a little bit of grip that you're not getting on some other knives, and it's attractive. It's just a little piece that is attractive on that. Hardware and everything, nothing seemed loose. Everything's nice and tight. I didn't have any issues with the blade getting a little bit of play. I didn't have any blade play in the pivot. I do have to say there's a couple things that I'm not a big fan. This is for a knife that I would use all the time. I don't think that I would want this knife to be as long as it is. It does come in handy for some things, but for my day-to-day use, something that's a little smaller, you have a little bit more control of. So when you're back here like this, and I mean, you're really kind of locked in there. Even if you get up here, you just feel like you're stretched trying to get up on it. A smaller knife, sometimes you can get a little bit more controllability out of it because the blade's not so far. You do feel a little bit far away from anything you're working on with this blade. It does have a bit of a small sway to it. It feels, I don't know if that's because of the way the handles are shaped. It does kind of feel like it's a little upswept. If you look at how it sits in hand, it kind of looks like the blade is going this way. So, but that was a weirdness that I kind of got used to. The only other thing I can really think of is I'm not such a fan of the pocket clip. The pocket clip is not bad. It's not uncomfortable, but it's also a little prouder than I would want. If I was doing some like really heavy duty cutting, super heavy duty cutting, I would probably take the pocket clip off. And the fact is that you kind of missed a chance. If you had not put this in here, you could have done a reversible pocket clip. So there's not a lot of bad things about this knife, but there's enough of them that I had to mention a couple. As far as fit and finish, and now that we got the bad out of the way, fit and finish on this is really good in all aspects, not just the liners. The spine has got a nice clean look to it. All of this spine has been rounded and it's nice and clean. This is a little sharp on the edge here, but that doesn't really play an issue. It gives it a unique, almost, how do I get zoomed in on? There we go. It gives it an arrowhead shape when you're looking at it from the front. Centering on it's almost perfect. I mean, all in all, guys, I really can't complain too much about this knife. Like I said, if I choke way up on it, it's not too bad, but I've gotten to where, like, for a knife, like a Wharncliffe knife like this that I use a lot, like a different shape, or like not necessarily Wharncliffe, but like a sheep's foot. The little shorter bit of a blade lets me get way up on it. Even though I've got large hands, the smaller knives are starting to appeal to me a little bit more because I can see the versatility in them. But all in all, this knife is really, really good. I'm happy with this. Now, let's go ahead and get into price point, because I'm absolutely putting an affiliate link to it down below. The only place I found this where you can reliably get it is on Amazon.com at $27 and, hang on a second, $27 and ready? $27.99. So $28 basically. You're looking at an under $30 knife with a lot of bells and whistles, a lot of comfort, unique look. I love how this comes up. It's pretty symmetrical. You get a really good blade to handle ratio and a really good action at 28 bucks. This is probably one of the best under $30 knives that I've ever seen. this one's up there with it. You're talking about under $30, under $30. These are both amazing options. I'll put a link to this one as well. QSP Penguin, great knife, another option. But I am so pleasantly surprised at what you get at that price point. And I meant to mention it, but the blade finish, that satin, that grinder satin on that at an angle, man, it's attractive because it just matches up. It follows those lines. And like I said, with that arrow point look to the tip, it's just awesome looking. So there you go, guys. I really do like this. I'm sorry if it sounded scatterbrained. It's one of the side effects of my meds. They do make me scatterbrained. But yeah, great knife at a really not just great price. It's freaking amazing, the price for what you're getting. And like I said, it doesn't have cheap knife heat treat on the steel. It held up incredibly well for what I put it through. Screamed through a lot of cardboard. So guys, let's not make this take any longer. I could I'm over the moon at what you get at the price point, because I literally it threw me off because I just looked up the price right before we started filming. So $28. That's just amazing. All right, guys, let's turn this around, do some final thoughts. Guys, under $30. Under $30. It's up there with the QSP Penguin, which is right around the same price point. Really similar, and it's really good. So comfortable. So guys, that's it on this one. If you like the videos, give them a thumbs up. If you don't like them, give them a thumbs down, but please tell me why. I can't change the content if you don't tell me what you don't like. If you want to support the channel, it's as simple as like, share, subscribe, drop a comment, hit the bell icon. But if you do hit the bell icon, make sure that you have got notifications turned on your device, or you're not going to get notified of sometimes 3 items that I put up a day. If you want to support the channel in other ways, I have got a bunch of affiliate links and stuff down below, including one for this. I have a membership down below where you can get it on a tier-based membership. Pick the tier that works best for you. And just remember that everyone, regardless of tier, saves $5 off my sharpening service and per knife, and has access to my Gilded server. And I have a merchandise store on Ember Shirt Co, where I've set up a coupon code that will save you 10% at checkout anywhere on Ember Shirt Co. And that coupon code is CrazySharp, all one word, capital C, capital S, CrazySharp. Saves you 10% at checkout. If you send me pictures of you wearing my merchandise, I will put them in videos. Guys, I love you all. Keep it clean in the comments section. If it's your birthday, happy birthday. And I will see you in the next video.